A couple years ago, Bentley sent me a Bentayga Speed, which had the brand's iconic W12 engine under the hood. Now, that engine died a couple years ago, and we were pretty sad to see it go. It was really technically interesting. It was made up of two VR6s. It made plenty of good sounds. It made a bunch of power and torque, and it really made the brand and the cars kind of interesting and stand out with a bunch of personality. Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and this is the 2025 Bentley Continental GT Speed. This is indeed not a Bentayga, but it is using the brand's replacement for the W12, which is going to be a twin-turbocharged V8 plug-in hybrid. Now, that may sound kind of formulaic at this point, but I think there's a lot to love here, and I want to run you through why that is. So let's just get right into it. So what do we have going on under the hood of this Continental GT Speed? Well, we're going to start with a version of the Volkswagen Audi Group's 4-liter twin-turbocharged V8. Bentley has been a part of VAG for quite some time, and we've actually seen this 4-liter twin-turbo V8 in things like the Audi SQ7 and the Audi RSQ8. And I'm not saying this is exactly the same, but it is at least sort of the same. It makes the same 591 horsepower that it did in the Audi RSQ8, and it makes in the Lamborghini Urus, which is again part of VAG. Now, this is paired to an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission that drives all 4 wheels, but I mentioned this is a plug-in hybrid, and that is where this gets kind of interesting. So there is indeed an electric motor and battery in this car. The battery's kind of out that way, and the electric motor is actually sandwiched in the transmission's bell housing. We've seen this across a bunch of brands. It's not a new concept, but what that means is the electric motor can take advantage of all 8 forward gears of the transmission, which means given this one has a ton of torque, you can drive this on pure electricity up to about 85-90 miles an hour. The electric motor itself is good for 188 horsepower, but 332 pound-feet of torque. Now, this is kind of a heavy car. It's about 5,400 pounds, but still, that's a lot of torque. And when you've got the gear multiplication of 8 speeds, you can drive this just like a regular EV, which feels pretty good. So we'll talk more about that in just a second. But total output of this whole setup is 771 horsepower and 738 pound-feet of torque. Again, you get the benefit of all-wheel drive, you get the benefit of all 8 gears, even if you're just using the electric motor. So the experience will feel pretty much the same. You just don't have all the power and torque, and you have no noise. And then the other neat thing about moving away from the W12 to the 8-cylinder is that you've got 4 fewer cylinders going on up here. For those who can do math at home, it took me a second, but you've got less weight up here. So even with the electric motor and the battery, Bentley was able to get nearly perfect weight distribution front to rear. It's 49% front, 51% rear, which I think is really fantastic. And even when a car is heavier, having even weight distribution really goes a long way in driving feel. You've also got some other really key mechanical stuff going on here to support all of this power and torque and this crazy drivetrain. You've got, of course, giant wheels, and those wrap around huge brakes. These have the optional carbon ceramic kit, and that is going to be a 17-inch front brake rotor, which is about as big as my race car wheel, with a 10-piston front brake caliper, which that's a lot of pistons. And then when you move to the back, those are 16-inch rotors with a 4-piston caliper out back. You've also got a full air suspension, you've got dual chamber air springs, you've got dual valve shocks, and you've got 4-wheel steering. So more on all of that in the driving portion, but there's a lot of cool mechanical stuff going on here. Now, I do want to show you a few things in the interior because while this is mostly a facelift for 2025, it's not an all-new car, there's still a lot to like in the interior, and I'm guessing most of you haven't seen a Continental's interior ever or in quite some time. So let me take you in there, and then we're gonna hit the road because I can't really enjoy this car in the DC metro area. I would like to get it out on some great back roads. It is Mother's Day weekend, and I'm going to go show this off to my mom and get her in the passenger seat and take her out for Mother's Day brunch. So let's hit the road, but first, the interior. Well, first things first, with the Continental GT, it is of course a pillarless hardtop, which I just adore. You've got your separate window here, and then of course your door window here. Now, as we hop inside, you'll note this one has some really fun interior going on. It's got this yellow accent everywhere on the seats, on the steering wheel, on the console, on the doors. Of course, this being a Bentley, you can pick every different color under the sun and even some more beyond that to option your car and your interior. So lots of options. This one is maybe not quite the way I would spec it myself, but I do like the color. I like the brightness among the black interior and then this kind of turned metal trim. So really nice there. Go ahead and hop in the car and we'll shut this door. And of course it is soft close and we have our seatbelt presenter, which is a lovely thing. Really appreciate that because we could not be bothered to put the seatbelt on without that. Now, looking at the gauge cluster here, this is going to be a fully digital cluster, and if you've seen Audi's virtual cockpit, you'll recognize this. It's a variant of it because Volkswagen Audi Group. That's not a bad thing. You've got a bunch of different unique views that are really fantastic, so that is that. Now, the steering wheel, of course, has controls here for audio, your heated steering wheel, and then this controls your center gauge screen. Looking over, this is a really lovely center console. You've got your infotainment screen. This runs a version of Audi's MMI. It's been reskinned to a degree and of course supports wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. It's very easy to use, it's very snappy, and again, they've reskinned it enough. It's perfectly functional coming from VAG. I really am totally okay with it. The single best part about this is such a Bentley thing. Oh, it's just so good. If you do not need this screen because you've picked your music, you know where you're going, you've got the navigation on in this part of the cluster, all you have to do is push the screen button and away it goes. And you now have dials for your outside temperature, your compass heading, and if you're going to be timing yourself or on a racetrack or whatever, you've got that. So that's really fantastic. When the car's turned off, this flips over yet again to show just a blank panel. So that I just think is so cool. It's nice at night. It gets rid of a lot of light in the cabin, which is great. There's also some really killer ambient lighting throughout the whole thing, which is, again, very, very nice. Looking further down, Bentley's kind of known for the analog clock, which is great. And then you've got these kind of Golf tee pullers that you use to control the airflow out of your vents. Now, moving further down to the center console, this is going to be really pretty easy to use. I know it looks like a lot of buttons and knobs. I like how many physical controls you have. Of course, this is going to be your shifter. This unlocks the shifter, and then it's typical monostable design, so forward for reverse, backwards for drive. There is a manual mode with paddles on the wheel. Dual zone climate, of course. Heated and ventilated seats here, and then your parking brake. This controls your drive modes. If you twist that knob, and then that is your engine start stop. E mode is going to force the car to stay in electric mode as long as it's got battery. This controls your driver assistance, and this controls your parking sensors and cameras. So nicely laid out here, easy to use. And then you've also got some controls on the sides of the seats because the car does have some other little tricks up its sleeve, including massaging front seats. That's part of a package. This is the first edition because this is the updated car for 2025, so it's got all that stuff built in. The other thing that you've got in here that you can't really see, and I can't play anything because copyright, you have the Nime for Bentley sound system, which I was not super impressed with in the Bentayga. It is so fantastic here in the Continental GT. So those are just some kind of highlights of the whole car's interior. And with all that, let's get on the road and talk about how this thing drives, because that is why we're here in the first place. All right, so let's talk about this Bentley. So I don't want to talk just about the engine because that kind of kills half the appeal of this car, and that is the ability to run on electric-only power. So we are on pure electric right now. This is able to do it up to about, they say 85 miles an hour. You can cheat it and go a little faster, and it won't kick the gas engine on. But point being, it'll do this up to about 75% throttle. It can use all 8 gears of the DCT, and it is generally just happy as a clam to do it. And this is the first PHEV that I've driven that has actual real usable torque when you need it, when it's running on electric power alone. It's got 332 pound-feet, which is insane to me, because around town and really even on these back roads, you don't necessarily need the V8, which is kind of funny because it's a good V8. But you know, some people have asked why, what's the appeal of making this a plug-in hybrid? And you know, really, what is there more luxurious than a complete absence of vibration and noise? And that's what you get when you take the V8 out of this. So when the car is in its default B Bentley drive mode, this is what you get. It will be purely electric until it runs the battery down to where it turns itself into a regular hybrid, which is how most PHEVs tend to work. So that's kind of what you get. So away from a stop, I mean, just literally all you get is tire noise, and there's really not that much of it. So it's good as an electric car, and it's so lovely, you know, around town, in the city, like this, in traffic. Just let it do its thing, you know, that's all you need. And then when you want to use all the power, you can. So with your drive modes, you have Sport, B for Bentley, Comfort, and Custom. And the default when you start the car is the Bentley mode. If you click the drive mode to Sport, it will force the gas engine to come on, and it will act as a generator as well as propelling the car. So it will kind of try to recharge the battery a little bit, as well as, you know, propel you forward with much more haste. Although this is honestly plenty quick as it is. I do like the way they've got the tachometer set up, because you can see how much percentage you're getting of pure electric before it hits the tachometer needle, and then it will clearly kick the gas motor on. But it's a lovely car as an EV, and it will do a real world 48 to 50 miles. That's about what I got out of it driving on this road trip that I've been on. Now I'm going to go ahead and kick the drive mode here to Sport. And that kicks the V8 on. And then as we turn here, go ahead and just kind of roll into it. I'm going to actually put it in manual mode, because half of the appeal is the sound of this and kind of the torque experience. And it's interesting because this is not like an American V8, clearly, but it's also not like other V8s I've driven, especially from the Volkswagen Audi group. You know, this is that 4-liter twin-turbo V8, which I've driven, I think, a variant of this in the Audi RSQ8 and the Audi SQ7. And this is a different feel and sound than what you get there. Got passing opportunity here. It sounds really good. And then, of course, there's someone parked in the middle of the road. It's just a really interesting, it's not super deep and guttural when you lay into it. It's actually very refined and kind of crispy. It's like the V8 equivalent of the ripping silk idiom that people talk about with a good inline six. And when you really it's just that kind of like, like chainsaw-y, but not in a shrill way. It's so lovely. But the way the motor builds torque from, 1,000 RPM all the way up until you decide to shift or let it shift for you is just this kind of speedboat feel, where it kind of, the back hunkers down and it just kind of, this wave of torque shoves you forward. And especially if you put it back into the automatic shifting sport mode, it's just delightful. And, the W12 had its own character. It had that kind of Wookiee noise that the VR6 had, but more of it because it was two of those, and that was really cool. But this is a different form of really cool. It still gives the car a lot of character, which is what you want in a car like this, especially the way it costs as much as it does. So drivetrain wise, lovely. Transmission being the 8-speed dual clutch, again, lovely. It behaves really, really well at low speeds with the electric motor or the V8 or both playing along, but shuffling around in traffic, it's really kind of unobtrusive, which is, again, what you want. So fabulous there. The ride quality is also very, very good in here. It's got the the air springs that can kind of do different things. They can adjust the ride height, although you're not going to mess with it on your own. But just a generally delightful driving experience from a ride quality standpoint. It's comfortable in here. It's quiet. The ride is good. As we're coming up to the stop sign, the brakes are excellent. You've got those 17-inch front rotors and 10-piston calipers. I'm gonna go ahead and brake torque this off the stop sign here. Oh, that's insane. But still just so refined, so easy, so just pleasant everywhere. That's what this car is. It's not dramatic in a rowdy way, but it's got plenty of power. It's just, everything is in excess. So back to the ride, it's fantastic. The seats are very comfortable. They're great for tall people. This one in particular, being the first edition, has that package that gives you the heated armrests. It gives you the massaging seats. They're ventilated, of course. Everything is heated in this car. Very, very comfortable, combined with pretty good visibility. So low enough dash and door sills that you've got a great view forward. Of course, the rear with the C-pillars is going to be kind of a thicker C-pillar, but that's kind of what you get for a coupe. Thankfully, lots of camera views, high quality cameras, so really nothing to complain about in that regard. The steering is also pretty good, pretty communicative. You know, this is a GT car, not a all-out sports car, supercar, so they're tuning this all for comfort over everything, which is honestly totally fine. It's kind of what you want. But plenty communicative. I know where the front wheels are. And then you've got four-wheel steering, which is fabulous for tight turns, especially in cities or parking lots. It is easy to maneuver this thing, and the wheelbase is not that long. Compared to most vehicles where I've experienced four-wheel steering, this is a short enough wheelbase and car in general that when you make the back wheels turn on top of it, it feels like this thing really pivots tightly, which it does. It is so easy to maneuver. This is just, it's so easy to car in. So that's what I like, is that, you know, despite this being so over the top, so luxury, so expensive, it's not intimidating in the slightest to get in and drive. So I really appreciate all of that. Now the brakes I mentioned back there at the stop sign are very good. Huge brakes, tons of pistons, lots of clamping force to slow you down. I'm okay with the pedal feel when the V8 is running. When the V8 is not running, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back to the B mode and let it kick back to EV drive. When it starts regenerating and you go for the brakes, the brake pedal can kind of move a little bit on its own, and the pedal feel is not the most confidence inspiring. I've been kind of jerky with it with my application. The initial bite is a little all over the place sometimes, and what I don't love is that I can't quite figure out why or when. So there's just a lack of consistency there. It's a very, very, very minor thing, and I think most people, you'll either get used to it or you'll never notice in the first place. But that is one of the two nits I want to pick with this car. Back to sport mode because yay, V8 noises, but the braking is just, like I said, when the V8's running, you don't notice it because of how they blend everything, and it's generally blended really, really, really well. So I don't want to harp on it too much, but EV only mode, that's where I've noticed it just a touch. Other thing with this car, it is so nice in here. This is very clearly a Bentley. It is bespoke most things. However, we know that they're part of Volkswagen Audi Group. We talked about it a few minutes ago, and I just wish for $405,000, or take all the options away, for $300,000, I wish this didn't make the chimes and the door lock sounds and use some of the same fonts and all that as an Audi. I know it's a really, like, some of you are gonna roll your eyes. However, we've got the Bentley, the bespoke Golf T plungers for the air vents. We've got bespoke fonts in the climate control dials and on all the switch gear and on the steering wheel and everything. And I'm okay that they're reusing some Audi switch gear. Like, the controls on the steering wheel are Audi, but they refont them, and that's okay. Some of the other controls are Audi, but they change the fonts, they change the graphics. Fine, I get it. That's economies of scale. And, you know, frankly, even when you get to the infotainment system and bring it back to the Bentley system, they've just kind of very mildly changed everything about the Audi MMI. Honestly, okay with that. But there's just little teeny things, and this is like so silly, but the GPS graphics, the speed limit sign in the heads-up display, those sorts of things are Audi. The door lock sound is Audi. And I'm really harping on this, but, you know, to me it bothers me because I also drive a lot of Audis. I like Audis, but I'm harping on it because I'm noticing it, and I think that, you know, it would be nice to have a little more differentiation there. However, is the average Bentley buyer gonna do any of that or necessarily care? Maybe not, probably not. So just another nit to pick. The other thing that people have brought up, you know, related to both noise in the cabin and overall grip, is the Pirelli tires on this car are, the grip level is ultimately kind of low. And I think that's partially because they're looking for mileage figures for the plug-in hybrid part. And, you know, your fuel economy is still not gonna be fantastic. You've got a billion horsepower V8 under the hood when the EV motor runs out of juice. I really don't love Pirelli tires across like any OEM that specs them, so I say this kind of all the time, but their grip threshold is just kind of low, and they're not very communicative. The car still has plenty of grip and plenty of ability to get down and boogie, but it's just I wish they would have picked a different tire. I think that would go a long way. And it is very, very quiet in here, especially when the V8 is off. I do think there's a little bit of tire noise that could be tuned out with a different tire. Now granted, this one is the Speed, this is on the 22-inch wheels. If you pick other specs, you might get a different tire, so that might change how you end up, you know, enjoying one of these cars. But even with those nits that I have picked, this is a delight. I get it. You know, I'm a sports car person through and through, and y'all have watched the channel long enough. Most of you are returning guests, so hello again. But you know, the Aston Martin Vantage that I had a few weeks ago obviously does not compare with this car as far as overall luxury quotient and price and all that. However, it's not quite half of what this car cost, but yeah, interesting. Anyway, the Vantage is probably what I would gravitate towards if I were in that price bracket to where I could afford any of these. Because the Vantage is more me. It's more sports car first. This is more luxury GT car that can get down and boogie. The Aston is the other way around. But for a car that is supposed to be luxury, quiet, touring first, then this is the Speed version. Lovely. And I had that Bentley Bentayga Speed a few years ago that had the W12. And you know, I love the 12-cylinder in that, but then I also felt like that car was too obviously Audi in certain ways. And I know I'm complaining about a couple things here, but this feels like Bentley's Bentley, and I just love that. So lots to love here. Do I miss the 12-cylinder? I think I miss the fact that the 12-cylinder was a W12, because if you're a dork like me, what that engine was is technically very, very cool. And it made nice noises, and it made plenty of power and torque. And it was just like neat and different and something that most people aren't doing. Whereas, okay, a twin-turbo V8, you know, yay, a lot of people do twin-turbo V8s. But this is also very cool in a different way. I adore the fact that this can run just on electric power and be usable and be so quiet when you do that. And then when you want it, it's this, like, not raucous, but tremendously torquey, speedboaty V8 that comes in, and you get kind of the best of both worlds here with no real compromise. So I wish the 12-cylinder was an option. It was a very cool thing to have for really about 2 decades of time. And you know, time marches on, technology marches on. This is a great setup. This is a great way to add more performance over a regular Continental while making it still feel special. This does still feel special like the W12 did. So I do appreciate it for that. And, you know, will I ever be able to afford one? Never say never, but I do, the plug-in hybrid part of this, I dig it a lot. So in any case, thank you so much for coming along. I know, you know, if you're gonna buy one of these, you probably already made up your mind, but if you're just looking to see what a Bentley Continental is like, I hope this was fun and informative, because I have really enjoyed kind of touring around and ripping around in this car. It is just so special. Thank you so much to Bentley for extending the loan, and I hope everyone learned a couple things beyond me going, wee, this sounds nice and it's fun, but it does and it is. So in any case, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe here. Tell all your friends if you liked it. Don't tell your friends if you didn't. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and join us online. Otherwise, we've got a whole membership program for LGBT car enthusiasts and motorsports competitors. We've got events throughout the rest of the calendar year all around the country, and some fun stuff online. We've got people who would love to be your besties all over the country and also in other parts of the world.
And otherwise, stay safe, be well. See you again soon.